This is the majority of my books in Fool's Journey Books bookshop. Unfortunately, not all of them are listed. I'm going to be sorting through these books, and once I've found all of the ones that aren't listed, I'm going to make a stack and then talk through them. So yeah, time-lapse time, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so I've just counted, and if you include every single item that I have yet to list, I have 111 items to list. And let me just check how many I currently have listed in the actual bookshop. 118 products listed on the bookshop at the moment. So that is only 7 more books listed than I have yet to list. That is quite daunting. Right, I'm going to get started listing these and we'll see how we get on. I have too many books to list. I have over 100 books that I need to list as soon as possible to get them in the shop, so that the shop can be full of all the beautiful books that I have. That's the whole point. But it's too many to do at once. So what I'm going to do is grab them in batches, get them onto the shop and chat about them as I go. So here are a load of books that I've grabbed. They're all mixed up. They're not of any particular theme or anything. And I'm going to chat about them once I've listed them. So cue time lapse of me writing up the descriptions and checking the condition of the books. And I'll be back later with some chit chat. So 2 days later, after some life got in the way, I am back with my books that I've now completely listed. I'm just going to introduce them to you now. So here we have this lovely little brown leather. It's so soft, I feel like it must be calf. I'm still getting used to how to catalogue books properly and know when something is calf or just crushed leather or Moroccan or whatever. It's very soft and very nice feeling. So it's one of the Bell's editions of the Poets of Great Britain, and it is the Chaucer. And we have an inscription from 1917. But the actual book itself is probably from 1787. That is when the copper plate print was made anyway. So it contains the poetic works of Chaucer, who many people don't know was actually a metal collector, a prisoner of war, and is the namesake for a crater on the moon. And this has a nice little slightly flaking burgundy panel on the spine saying the name of the poet. It also has this like gold leaf patterning on the edge. Next up we have a book that is slightly later. It's from 1806. The leather is a bit more mottled on the cover of this one, and the spine isn't in quite as good condition as the last, but it does have some beautiful dark marbling on the inside, and this is the works of Virgil, and it used to belong to William Firmage. I'm going to look up William Firmage. Let's see what we can find. So apparently born 1755 and died 1836, William Firmage, the previous owner of this book, was an architect and sculptor active in Leicester. His mother was Anne Adcock and his father was also William Firmage, and he was married to Anne Barton. So yeah, a little bit of information about the provenance of this book. So next up we have First and Last Things by H.G. Wells. So part of the Thinker's Library series, which I really like the look of. I've got quite a few of those now. This book was written when Wells was going through a really tough period personally and professionally in his life, and he's sort of chewing over his philosophy on religion and life and knowledge and existence, and it sort of runs the gamut of Wells's positions on things, at least as they were during this period of his life. It's a really good insight into the mind behind some of the most influential science fiction works that we have. Next up we have Men of the Dawn by Dorothy Davison. Now I'm just going to put that down. I really like, so like a fantasy book, it has the map in the inside, like a bit Tolkien-y, but I really love the red and the cover of the actual book on this one. Still very bright and nice. Yeah, and that shows you what the dust jackets look like. I should pick up the microphone on these books, the Thinker's Library. Dorothy Davison was an early prehistory sort of expert, historian, before we had a term for that sort of thing, I guess. I have a review here. She has covered essential facts and theory from the beginning of things down to the Asilo-Tardinosian times. Her book is simple enough in argument and language to be comprehensible by a child of average intelligence of the age of, say, 12, while the narrative is sufficiently interesting and picturesque as to make a child of that age want to read it. This is true even when dealing with such a topic as the psychology underlying Paleolithic art, which introduces an entirely alien point of view. It must not be thought, however, that this book is for children only. It covers the latest discoveries, and as an introduction to prehistory, it is as good, if not better, than many a more pretentious work. So if you'd like to know what this reviewer from 1944 thought that a child of average intelligence of the age of, say, 12 would like and be able to read and comprehend, then do get The Man of the Dawn. Next up we have Time Machine and Wheels of Change by H.G. Wells. So this is a double bill. It contains a comic novel about a cycling holiday written in a sort of three men in a boat style, and also one of the most influential works of early science fiction in the canon. Now, I recently went on to East Lothian on a holiday and I found a nice little secondhand bookshop and I picked up a couple of things. This is one of them, C.S. Lewis's The Screw Tape Letters. And as someone who's a fan of Philip Pullman, I'm sort of biased against Lewis, to be honest. But I do like reading apologists of all stripes, and it's quite an interesting conceit, letters from a senior to a junior devil. But another thing that drew me to it, this book is dedicated to one of his best friends, J.R.R. Tolkien, which, if you can see behind me, I have quite a lot of Tolkien in the book shop. Speaking about the loss of his friend Lewis, he says, "So far I've felt the normal feelings of a man of my age, like an old tree that is losing its leaves one by one. This feels like an axe blow near the roots." So I also picked up this book, Teach Yourself Conjuring by J. Elsdon Tufts. It contains just a load of really nicely illustrated, with these like line drawing illustrations, details and guides to stage magic and sort of close magic. And by magic, I mean with a C, with no K, just sleight of hand and card magic and all that kind of thing. This is the only thing of that stripe that I have in the bookshop, and I probably won't get too much more, but I just really liked the sort of striking cover and the aesthetic of the guide inside as well. Now here we have Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, the Regent's Classic, which I picked up a while ago, I think, which I just managed to list. And it's a nice little edition. I wasn't able to find a specific date for it, but early 20th century, definitely. Did you know that these novels were banned in China in 1931 on the grounds that animals should not use human speech? Just thought that was an interesting fact about Alice in Wonderland for you there. Now, next up, we have something that I found really interesting. I'm going to get it out of its little sleeve here. A little bit of sleeve ASMR for you. So this is Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp, which was distributed out of Sandwich, Kent. And again, I couldn't find a specific date for it, and I couldn't find much about it online. It used to belong to M.S. Stewart, this one. And even though they look a bit sort of rough because the tape has come away from the binding of the little pamphlet that they're stored in, they're actually in really good condition. There are these slide cells, if you call them that, I don't know, depicting the story of Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp. So it goes, Aladdin is lazy and plays all days, and then the next one is, Aladdin meets a magician, and then suddenly a great hole appears in front of Aladdin. The magician tells Aladdin to bring out a lamp. Aladdin finds jewels in the cave and fills his pockets. Aladdin refuses to give the magician the lamp until he is safely outside. The angry magician closes the opening, and Aladdin is left in the dark. The genie appears when Aladdin rubs the lamp. Aladdin's wishes are granted by the genie, and he is soon very rich. Aladdin meets the beautiful princess. Aladdin's mother takes gifts to the king, and Aladdin gives the princess the magic lamp as a wedding present. So that's what's underneath each slide, like the label for each slide, but it also contains a little fold-out pamphlet, has a little paragraph for each slide that you're meant to read as you view the slides. If anyone does pick this up, please, please, please get in touch with you demonstrating it with your slide, even if it's like an OHP or something. I would be fascinated to see that. Now, another Thinker's Library book that I have here is The Riddle of the Universe by Ernst Haeckel. One of the world's greatest books, its revelation of the light which science throws upon the mysteries of existence is as fresh today as when it first roused a storm of controversy. Now, speaking of controversy, since getting this book, because I was sort of just picking up Thinker's Library books that were in decent condition because I like the look of them, and there's just lots of interesting stuff in there. I've discovered since that Haeckel is a proponent of race theory and eugenics and all of that kind of stuff. This book is from 1929, primed and ready for those theories to be picked up and taken to their logical conclusion in the 40s, and unfortunately is relevant today. It's definitely something that has had a resurgence. So a bit of a relic there. This book itself doesn't really deal with those topics, I don't think. It's more about cosmology and the nature of existence. But yeah, that is what it is. Books fell over there. One of the most renowned Christian apologist horror writers of his time. This is a first edition Faber and Faber of Descent into Hell by Charles Williams from 1937. And he had this theory about love as a holy act, like romantic love as a sort of holy act. And the main character in this, which is generally regarded to be his best novel, is an academic who, instead of romantic love, sort of fetishizes a woman and has a sort of lustful love for her, and eventually sort of summons a succubus, and it all just sort of spirals out of control. But a really interesting occult horror novel from that perspective. And vitally, it's in great condition and it has a really cool cover. So we're halfway, so I will say all of these books are available and listed on foolsjourneybooks.com. And there are definitely some of the more affordable books that I've listed. There's plenty there that you could get for not too much. Moving on to the next book. Now this one is one that I really like. It is a biographical essay on Paracelsus. And it's a really neat little copy. I just love I love these books that you could sort of fit in a pocket and take out and read in, 1 or 2 sittings in a pub or a cafe or something. It's written by Basilio de Telepnef, almost certainly butchered that. Published in 1945 in Switzerland by the Swiss Society of the Friends of Paracelsus. It just covers Paracelsus's life and focuses on his travels around the world and how they informed his worldview. And Paracelsus is usually regarded as a sort of bridge scientist, alchemist, sort of that time when alchemy was becoming chemistry and astrology was becoming astronomy. He's sort of regarded as someone who sort of worked in that middle ground, I think. And so his actual real name as well was Philippus Areolus Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim. Bombastus von Hohenheim is a strong name. Like, why would you change that to Paracelsus? Apparently his students renamed him Paracelsus. Yeah, and it contains, and it'd be tricky to do this safely with one hand, but it does contain, again, like a Dawn of Man. I love these books that have maps that aren't Tolkien. It just makes you feel like our world is a fantasy world that we all are world building one day at a time. But it contains a map of his travels, and here's a little interesting thing I found, I think, from the wiki. During the Renaissance, active interference with the sick body was regarded as a form of treatment that was beneath the dignity of a physician. A surgeon was therefore perceived as a craftsman with no grasp of theory, and it was a job usually assigned to barbers. Paracelsus begged to differ, however. Medicine alone was just a philosophical insight into the workings of the body, and surgery was the cure. Moreover, he claimed that there can be no surgeon who is not a physician. His army days gave Paracelsus a firm belief that medicine should be interventionist. Quite a vital figure, and a lovely little book. Now, written by Agnes M. Mile, this is a first edition, third impression from 1958 of complete fortune telling. Now, as you can see, the dust jacket is a little bit sort of loosey-goosey, but I just love the sort of tabloid cover of that, and like the idea of someone sort of sending off and paying their 10 and sixpence for this book and getting it in the post. It covers cartomancy, how to find a man for you, in which month were you born, reading your hand, divining by sand, crystal gazing, dice decisions, deductions from dominoes, fortunes in the fire, knife prophecies, scribbles, teacups, precious stones, bridal luck, something about surnames. There's just so much in here. And she also wrote books on dressmaking, being a bachelor girl, etiquette, as we can see here, modern etiquette, making clothes for older women, and she dabbled in the occult to quite an extent. So yeah, I love this sort of domestic occult blending that you get with some astrology and tarot reading and sort of tea leaves and stuff. It's great. Next up, we have 2 copies in slightly different condition each. And these are book club edition firsts of Rosemary's Baby, which is one of my favourite horror novels and horror films. I love it. Features one of the best occult horror movie trope examples of the key grimoire. I'm trying to think of a better name for it. I will think of one because I want to do a whole video on them. But where There's a moment in the occult story where the main character, who is being pursued by a coven or whatever it happens to be, finds a big tome, big dusty leathery tome, and finds exactly the key to the information they need to work out what's going on, and it sort of explains everything. And it just has such a great one of those, including an anagram. Yeah, these are from the publication year of the first edition, 1967, and they are first of the book club's edition. What is the difference between a book club edition and a first edition, I hear you say? Well, the book club edition was made using a slightly cheaper stock of paper and sometimes a different format size so that they are more available, because the first editions are usually quite small runs. They're usually not quite as sought after as the first edition, as you could imagine, but it's from the same year. I think they're quite collectible and nice. So you don't see them that often in the UK, a quite US heavy release for this one. Yes, Rosemary's Baby. We have 4 left. Now here we have The Dark Side of History by Michael Edwards, Magic in the Making of Man. If I had like lots of clones of me that I could like set off studying and writing certain things, I always had this idea that I would like to do a history book of like the history of humankind, but through the prism of the occult and magic and how it's influenced various things, because it just seems to like pop up all over the place in art and science and music in ways that you might think like, oh, it's only really obscure weirdos who are into this stuff. But it's like, no, actually, a lot of, especially in science, like a lot of eureka moments, they almost always involve people feeling as if they're channeling some other intelligence, or they happen in a dream, or they happen in these odd ways that you could argue have a sort of occult side to them. Anyway, this seems to be a sort of version of that. It's a history of mankind through the occult prism. And I can't find another version of it to check, but to me it looks like this copy is signed on the cover, but it might be a sort of stamp. It would be very odd for the writer to sign the cover like that. Usually you would sign the title page, but it really does look to me as if it's been signed. So a possibly signed version of The Dark Side of History by Michael Edwards is a first edition. Speaking of first editions, we have The Three Sevens, A Story of Initiation by Felon. Now this book is interesting because it's clearly spent a decent chunk of its life in a Rosicrucian library with the Hermetic Brotherhood of Atlantis, Luxor and Elefante. And it contains a lot of occult laws, a lot of details of initiation into this order, some of it in sort of novel form. It contains a lot of weird stuff at the back about sort of sin and things that abhor the soul, including lesbianism and homosexualism. How does it phrase it? Homosexualism and lesbianism that attack the very core of one's spiritual center because it lacks true love. All in italics and exclaimed. Lots of talk of the wholesale nature of glands and things like that. As with a lot of stuff that I have, me stocking it is not a sort of stamp of approval. I think it's interesting to see what these orders are up to anyway. So it's from 1977, and I have a little quote here about Dr. Felon or Felon. Dr. Felon was known in San Francisco and throughout the country as the head of a peculiar order known as the Hermetic Brotherhood of Atlantis, Luxor and Elefante. The society was established by Dr. Felon in Chicago in the early 70s and has for its prime object the upbuilding of character. It was founded on the belief that the wisdom of the sages of the lost continent of Atlantis was held by a body of men known as the Ancient Atlantean Brotherhood, and that the society of Dr. Felon's was supposed by its adherents to be the true successor of this prehistoric organization. So next up we have Cairo's Palmistry for All. He read the palms of celebrities such as Mark Twain, W.T. Stead, Sarah Bernhard, Mata Hari, Oscar Wilde, Grover Cleveland, Thomas Edison, the Prince of Wales, General Kitchener, William Ewart Gladstone and Joseph Chamberlain. And he documented his sittings by getting them to sign a guest book, apparently, and became quite famous at the time and basically popularised palm reading with the general public. He shows the hand of Lord Kitchener within the book. This copy is at least from 1920. It doesn't have an actual publication date. The inscription is from 1920. Available on foolsjourneybooks.com. And we come to our final book in our slightly wobbly stack of books that have now all been listed. If you enjoy me going through the books that I've listed like this, then please do leave a comment to let me know so that I know to do more of it in the future. Anyway, our last book is The Occult Philosophy in the Elizabethan Age, Francis A. Yates. Now, this is a first edition. It comes from Queen's University of Belfast History of Science Class Library. And Yates is known as a sort of expert in the Hermetic and the occult. And she was an early member of the Warburg Institute and sort of helped establish it as a leading institute in these kind of topics, as it still is today, and houses this incredible collection of tarot and all sorts of occult matter. But yeah, someone I want to sort of get more books on and do various videos on is John Dee, of course. He's buried near where I grew up in London, and yeah, I've sort of have a close place in my heart for John Dee. But there's a couple of chapters here on John Dee, and it goes all the way from the Christian Kabbalah in the medieval period to Rosicrucianism and John Milton, and even Shakespeare's Prospero. And we all know that The Tempest is Shakespeare's best play. Ending on a completely uncontroversial note. Thank you for watching. Please do follow Fool's Journey Weird Books on Instagram, Fool's Journey Books on YouTube. I will be posting to TikTok more soon, so Fool's Journey Books over there as well. And check out foolsjourneybooks.com. Let me know if you like this kind of video, and all the best. Peace!